Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to the 400 Mini show, an exploration of the built-in games for the 400 Mini retro gaming console and onwards into the broader Atari 8-bit library. Today's game is basketball, and I'll be honest, I've been putting off covering this one. In my experience, sports games are very much an acquired taste, although I must confess over the course of various videos I've made on this channel, I've found there's some that are actually quite fun. These are typically the games that focus on being a fun video game first and foremost, an accurate simulation of the sport second. Basketball was first released in 1978 for the Atari 2600, or the VCS or Video Computer System as it was known at that point. It was developed by Alan Miller, who several years later would become one of the founding members of Activision, the first third-party video game developer. Miller himself developed this Atari 8-bit port of basketball in 1979, and Atari also released an arcade game that was rather similar to Miller's game the same year. We've previously seen both the arcade and 2600 versions on the Atari A to Z Flashback series on this channel. The original 2600 version of basketball was noteworthy for being one of the first two-player games to provide the option for a solo player to compete against a computer-controlled opponent rather than requiring two people to sit at the console. Video Magazine's Arcade Alley column, written by Bill Kunkel and Frank Laney, noted that basketball was that rare game that plays well solitaire or with a human opponent, and that it was the most exciting 4 minutes of one-on-one hoop action we've seen so far. They also praised the game's quasi-3D side-on presentation as providing an authentic fan's eye perspective on the action. Alright then, I suppose we better get this over with. Let's go play basketball. Okay, here we are with basketball from Atari. In this indoor sports game played against the clock, you try to score more points than the opposing team. Dribble, shoot, pass, block or steal shots from your opponents. Choose from 5 game variations with up to 4 players. Start each game with a jump shot and don't dribble past your end line. Let's just check the controls briefly. Shoot or pass ball on the fire button. Select mode with the button on the back. Start with the right ring button. And that's about it. Okay. Let's give it a go. So, Atari Basketball 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 5. So 5 different game modes. I'm not actually sure offhand what all those are. So if you bear with me just a moment, I will actually look those up. Any sort of missing documentation that isn't built into the 400 Mini, there is a bit of extra information on the 400 Mini's website, on Retro Games' website. So if you take a look at the games page, you can scroll through all of the games that are on the console, including a couple of hidden ones. And let's see. So 5 game modes. Game 1 is 1 player. Game 2 is 2 players. Game 3 is 3 players. Game 4 is 4 players with no computer. Game 5 is 2 players with no computer. So you can actually play this with up to 3 friends to do 2-on-2 basketball. But there's no means of playing 2-on-2 with you controlling just one person on your team. So if you're playing by yourself, your only option is game number 1. So I don't know. I don't know how long we're going to be here today because there's probably not a lot to say, but we'll see. Copyright Atari 1979. Like we said, this came out the year after the 2600 version. Let's play. All right, so I am the home player, which let's be honest here. It's the white guy. I mean, you know, on the one hand, kudos for putting a black guy in a game this early, but also maybe a touch of stereotyping there, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. It's easy to look for ill intent where there isn't necessarily any. They just wanted 2 contrasting player colours, and as well as contrasting the colour of their shorts and jersey, in this they also contrasted the colour of their skin as well, which makes sense from a sort of practical design perspective. So the original 2600 version of this just has single colour sprites, so the entire player sprite was a different colour, and they were like pink and green or something like that. So they were completely inhuman colours. So it's nice to see that they've at least gone for a vaguely realistic look to the players in this. So the gameplay, as you can see, is pretty simple. It's just dribble the ball to the other end and then shoot. And the amount of time you hold down the fire button affects what trajectory your shot takes. And you can steal the ball by just sort of moving into the other player while they've got it. I think it's to do with the position of the sprite's feet, if I remember rightly. And you can also try and block, but I have never ever managed to get that to work. So I don't really know what determines whether that works or not. Whether it's to do with whether you've got to be more lined up with the basket than I am or not. But as you can see, there's an attempt at providing a sense of perspective here. The player sprites don't change in size or anything, but they can at least move in and out of the screen, up and down on the screen. Which is something. Nope. Still no joy with that blocking. And as you can see, your tactical options are pretty limited because of the small size of the court, the fact there's only 2 players on screen at once. Block it. No. Oh, he's equalised. Give it to me. Give it to me. It's not quite as bad as Real Sports Basketball on the 2600, where you had like this laser-guided homing shot. At least here it's not necessarily guaranteed to go in every time. You do have to sort of look at your positioning and your timing and the power of your shot to a certain degree. But with the on-screen information, you're mostly doing it sort of by feel and instinct rather than sort of necessarily being able to calculate things precisely. Oh no. 6 seconds. No. Oh no. Oh. That's frustrating. And no extra time. No extra time. 46 for our first attempt at that. Like I said, there's not a lot else to say about this really. So I guess we can just have another go and see if things unfold any differently. Let's play. See if we can at least get that block working. Now, I'm being a bit negative and cynical about this game, but I think it's worth celebrating what it does well. So, the movement and animation of the sprites is very smooth. That's not super surprising because the Atari 8-bit was good at sprites. It had 4 hardware sprites called players. Technically it has 4 players and 4 missiles because they were designed with sort of space shooting games in mind. But it was possible to combine the 4 missiles into a 5th player sprite. Now normally those sprites are just a single colour. But what you can do is you can sort of overlay two sprites on top of each other of different colours to produce the illusion of a multicoloured sprite. Well, I'm pulling ahead a bit this time. Uh-oh. Had to say it, didn't I? I had to say it. Oh, no. Now he's equalised. Stupid bastard. Right, come on. Steal it. Steal it. No, that's letting him score again. Yeah, so what we've probably got here is... Actually, I don't know, because each of those sprites has got several colours, hasn't it? So there's likely a degree of software sprites going on there, or other forms of graphical manipulation. Because we've got the hair, which is a little line of black pixels at the top. We've got the skin tone. Then we've got the shirt, and we've got the shorts. No shoes though. Playing barefoot, as characters in games of this era often did. Oh no. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. No. This is extremely simplistic, but you know what? It's not bad. It's not bad when you consider how early it was. And the colour and the animation is a definite improvement on the 2600 version. You may recall the running animation in the 2600 version was pretty much just a leg would appear and disappear. I don't understand how you make that block work. Do not understand that at all. I guess you need to do it further out. There we go. And you can sort of be a little bit tactical with things like that. So throw it knowing that your shot's not going to go in, and then go and retrieve it before your opponent gets it. Nope. But yeah, with the computer player being so prone to shooting at such close range, it's kind of difficult to block. So I guess maybe the block move is more intended for playing against other players, because as you can probably see from the way I'm playing, it is possible to shoot from further out and score. No. Oh, no, give it here. No. I just need to prevent him from scoring. No, 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 no. Don't you. Oh. I feel like if that was a real game, they would have probably given that to him. But I'll call that a victory. Yeah, so, I mean, that's basketball. That's really all there is to say about it. I don't hate it, despite any sort of implications I might have made in the introduction. I don't hate that, because it's a competently put together game. It looks nice. It plays okay. As a solo player, it would quickly get boring. What you got to bear in mind is the comments in the Arcade Alley column were written from the perspective of people who were still very new to the concept of video games in general. Video games were still a brand new phenomenon. And the concept of the single player game, it existed, but in the case of competitive titles like this, the idea of playing against a computer opponent was still relatively new and unusual. And so there was no thought given whatsoever to whether the game should be any more complex for a single player than just playing against the computer. So things like career modes and tournament modes and that sort of thing didn't become a thing until much, much later. For the longest time, sports games like this were arcade-style affairs where you just sit down, you play a game for 4 minutes, and that's it. Then you play again if you want to, or you turn it off and play something else. And that's fine. That's fine, because that's what video games were in the late 70s. And with this game coming out in the late 70s, it wasn't even into the 80s that this came out. That would have been enough for a lot of people. That would have been enough. It's only looking at this from a modern perspective that you think, well, there's not much to that really. Why would I want to play that? And I think it's important to bear that historical context in mind. Whenever you're looking at any game, whether it's retro or modern or anything in between, the important thing to look at is, does this game achieve what it set out to do? And you should judge a game based on what it is trying to do, not what you think it should be. And in the case of this game, all this game is trying to do is provide a game of one-on-one basketball for a solo player, or for 2 players, or to provide 2-on-2 gameplay for 3 or 4 players. And it does that. It succeeds at that. It's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. It functions. It's bug-free, it seems, anyway. I certainly didn't run into anything unusual. It looks good for the time. It's got decent sound effects, providing you with plenty of feedback on what's going on. What more do you need? Or I should say, in 1979, what more would you have needed? Not a lot. So yeah, I think while the value of this from a modern perspective might be a little bit questionable, when you take it in context of when it originally came out, this is absolutely fine. And I can imagine this is probably quite fun with another player, or if you can get 3 people who are willing to play this with you together. With 4 players, I can imagine it would be quite entertaining. I can say from first-hand experience that I've had great fun with some Atari 2600 sports titles, particularly Real Sports Soccer is a long-standing favourite of me and my friends, just because the mechanics are so simple and straightforward, and it works as a fun video game first and foremost, and a simulation of soccer second. So it plays pretty fast and loose with the rules of soccer, but it works as a video game. And that's what you want, really, isn't it, when you're playing a video game? Anyway, I've waffled on for long enough. That's pretty much all there is to say about basketball for the moment. So we'll leave that there for now. Just remains for me to say, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.